Today, we're jumping into the explosive story of one of the most important inventions in all of human history, gunpowder. And this is a story that doesn't start in some high-tech weapons lab. Nope, it begins in the pretty mystical world of ancient alchemy, and it ends up completely changing the face of the planet. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's the central kind of mind-bending irony of this entire story, right? The hunt for a potion that would let people live forever accidentally leads to something that would end up ending millions of lives. It's just a perfect example of how innovation, well, it rarely goes in a straight line. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in 9th century China. For hundreds of years, Taoist alchemists had been on this one singular mission, mixing all sorts of exotic minerals and plants, all because they were hoping to create a mythical elixir of immortality. These weren't just scientists, They were more like spiritual chemists, trying to unlock the actual secrets to eternal life. But, this wasn't some sudden eureka moment. It was a slow burn happening over centuries. We're talking as early as 1402 AD. You've got texts describing mixtures that, well, they would fly and dance violently. By 300 AD, alchemists are taking notes on their experiments with all the key ingredients. And what's really fascinating is that by the 9th century, they weren't just discovering this stuff anymore. They were already writing safety manuals, warning each other about formulas that were literally burning their hands and their houses down. And the name they gave it tells you everything you need to know. Hua Yao. It literally means fire medicine. See, it wasn't born as a weapon. It was a side effect, a powerful, fiery medicine that came out of the alchemist's pot. That name is a direct link to its origins in the search for longevity. So how did this fire medicine turn into a weapon? Well, there's a popular idea out there that the Chinese only used it for fireworks. But, the historical record is pretty clear. From the get-go, its main applications were military, overwhelmingly so. And here it is, the classic perfected recipe for what we call black powder. The real secret sauce here is the potassium nitrate. You probably know it as saltpeter. It's the oxidizer. It provides all the oxygen that the fuel, that's the charcoal and sulfur, needs to burn incredibly fast, even without any air around. That's why it's not really an explosion like dynamite. It's a deflagration, basically a super, super rapid whoosh of combustion that creates a massive amount of gas pressure. So for the first few hundred years, they weren't really firing bullets with gunpowder. They were using its power for fire and for shock. It was used as a fuse for flamethrowers. They were strapping it to arrows to create these terrifying fire arrows, or packing it into containers to make early bombs. The fire lance, that was a huge step. It was kind of like a proto-gun, a bamboo tube that used the blast to shoot out shrapnel. A true firearm was still a little ways off. And make no mistake, this was not some little backyard experiment. By the 11th century, the Song Dynasty was mass-producing this stuff. To give you some perspective, in a single year, the court sent 100,000 gunpowder arrows to just one garrison. This was state-sponsored, industrial-scale military tech. Okay, so you've got this incredibly powerful technology. It was never going to stay locked up in China for long. Its spread across the world was basically as fast and as transformative as the substance itself. And the main vehicle for this global spread? Well, it was the Mongol Empire. As the Mongols conquered China, they absorbed its advanced military technology, things like those thunderclap bombs and fire lances. And when they turned their armies west, they brought their brand new arsenal with them. They were the primary conduit for getting gunpowder tech across all of Eurasia. And we actually have the receipts for this, linguistically speaking. When Arab scholars started working with saltpeter, that key ingredient, they didn't even have a word for it, so what did they call it? Daj al-Sin, which translates to Chinese snow. And they weren't the only ones. The Persians had a very similar name for it, Namak Shura Chini. It means salt from Chinese salt marshes. The clues are all right there in the language. The world knew exactly where this revolutionary stuff was coming from. But here's where the story takes a really critical turn. The early gunpowder that came out of China, this stuff called serpentine powder, it was just a fine dust, and it was a total nightmare to work with. The ingredients would separate as you transported them. It soaked up water like a sponge, and it was super unreliable and dangerous to load. Then, in the 14th century, a European innovation changed everything: corning. They figured out if you mix the powder with a liquid, press it into a cake, and then break it up into little grains, you create a stable, way more powerful propellant. This was the key upgrade that truly unlocked the potential of firearms. So with this new souped-up powder, demand just skyrocketed. But how on earth do they actually make it on an industrial scale? Well, the process was complex, it was methodical, and it was unbelievably dangerous. Making this stuff was basically a dangerous five-step recipe. First, you gotta pulverize the charcoal and sulfur. Then comes the most critical part, incorporating everything together under these massive multi-ton wheels, and you add water to keep it from sparking. Next, that wet paste gets pressed into a dense cake. That cake is then corned or broken up into those all-important granules. And finally, the grains are glazed with graphite, which helps them flow better and, crucially, reduces the risk of a static spark setting the whole place off. And when you look at a real corning mill, you understand the danger instantly. The entire building is designed around one single assumption, that it will eventually explode. You see these super thick walls, often with huge earthen mounds built up around them, all to try and contain the blast and stop a catastrophic chain reaction. You have to imagine what it was like to work in one of these places. It was a life lived on a knife's edge. Any little spark, from friction, from static, from a dropped steel tool, could be the end. So they used tools made from bronze or wood, they put copper shoes on their horses, they kept the powder wet for as long as they possibly could. And get this, they even made workers sit on one-legged stools, so if they dozed off, they'd fall over and wake up. A bruise was a whole lot better than an explosion. So from an alchemist's mistake to this incredibly dangerous industrial process, the journey of this fire medicine just completely remade the world. I mean, you really can't overstate its impact. It all comes back to that profound paradox at the heart of the story, and this quote just captures it perfectly. Quote, "An invention that began with the search for a way to extend life had the ironic consequence of becoming the means of prematurely ending millions of lives." In the end, gunpowder didn't just change how battles were fought, it completely reshaped entire societies. Those huge stone castle walls that had stood for centuries, now they could be shattered by cannon fire in just a few days. The age of the armored knight on horseback, over. It helped topple feudalism and build up centralized nations with powerful new armies. It created global naval empires and shifted the balance of power on the planet forever. The story of gunpowder is just this powerful reminder that history's biggest revolutions often start completely by accident. And it really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What alchemists in today's labs searching for their own modern-day elixirs might be accidentally stumbling on the next discovery that changes everything.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.